Before I start, I wish to acknowledge the custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their elders past, present, and future. I wish to acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to the life of the city and this region. This brand new podcast, Moonlight Conversations, explores topics you and I want to talk about: life, love, hopes and dreams, and everything in between. It tackles the discussions we have with ourselves and other people about our thoughts, emotions, and experiences. Most of all, it delves into why conversations are highly essential for physical, emotional, and mental well-being, and how our souls and spirits need them to thrive and not just survive. We all deserve to be healthy and happy, to shine and to sparkle. So join me in this journey. Start a conversation with me now. It can inspire people and change lives. Tonight, I speak with Jenni Anne, a purpose coach, mentor, and breathwork teacher. She worked in the corporate world for 12 years and inevitably burnt out and led her down a road of many health issues, but also invited her into her spiritual healing journey. Eventually, she was able to leave the corporate space permanently and got her coaching certifications as well as breathwork and yoga, and followed her heart to do the work she does today. She talks about how finding our life purpose is essential and how her purpose coaching and breathwork can help us achieve this. We talk about why the heart always comes before the mind and how we can tap into or connect with our feminine side or power to transform our lives. Please help me welcome Jenni Anne Turner. Welcome, Jenni. Welcome, Jenni.
Hello, how are you? Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for our conversation today.
Oh, thank you so much for being here, gracing our show. First of all, I would just like to ask you a little bit of an introduction about yourself. Tell us what about your journey made you go into coaching and breath work.
Contained as possible, but we can basically say that I used to work in the corporate environment. I was in corporate for about 12 years, and it was really something that I fell into. It wasn't a choice. It was just, oh, I'm actually really good at this, so I'm going to keep on going. So I was working in the retail sector. I started off in fashion, then I moved to a sports company. But over these years, my kind of childhood wounding, which I'm sure a lot of listeners can also resonate with, is this high performer, people pleaser, their perfectionism. All of these kind of behaviors and patterns started to get just stronger and stronger and stronger. And I ended up burning out in 2018. And it's a funny thing because I always knew, even when I was a little girl, that I wanted to do something more. I wanted to help people. I wanted to have more meaning. But the way that I was raised, which was a beautiful way that I was raised, but it was kind of the old way and the very safe way of you go to school, you get your good grades, and you go to uni. And I didn't have any restrictions from my parents, but that's just the kind of, conditioning that I had. So doing something on my own was just like, oh, wow, that's so big, and if there's no rules for me to follow, then I felt really uncomfortable with that. Anyway, we come to 2018, we have the burnout. And this was my really big wake up call from the universe being like, you're in the wrong place, like you're doing the wrong thing. And that's what started my journey. I was listening to Tony Robbins back then, and a lot of personal development stuff, trying to understand about the brain. I was just fascinated by how we can really create our lives and how we can choose differently. And along that journey, I picked up yoga, I picked up breath work, and I found both of those to be hugely transformative tools. And this was really where I was just called into coaching. This is when coaching first kind of came into my life. And it was like, I want to do this. I can see the big impact that this has and how lasting change can really look. And when I first got my own coach, it was just like my whole life changed. So that's what really drew me into it. I just felt this like big pull and started, my world got bigger, and I could see that there are so many other women out there, because I primarily work with women who could use the same support that I had, and I wanted to be that person.
I see. So basically, you had a calling. You had this universe calling you and telling you you're supposed to be doing something else, and you just went for it.
Absolutely.
Purpose coaching and breath work made you
Mhm.
interested, concentrate on those two. Like, what is
Sure.
purpose coaching and breath work? Can you tell us more about
Abs-
that, please?
yes, I would love to. So, funnily enough, if I look back, and I was actually in teaching one of my classes this week, and we were talking about this, that we have this kind of, we feel this calling, this pull, this there's something more. You might not be able to quite put your finger on it, but you feel this like tug. For me, it's like a heart yearning.
Yeah.
And my last few years, so it was 2 years ago that I left corporate. And back then, even though I had millions of euros in my budget, I had a big wider team, I was still terrified of public speaking. I was terrified of being on stage. I was terrified even in a Zoom call.
Yeah.
But I still had this calling to be a teacher, to be a coach, to be in the spotlight. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't quite know how I was going to get there. And so I spent the last couple of years like diving into a lot of different things, self-love coach. Is that really where my calling is? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's not. Okay, am I going to be just an empowerment coach? And I was like, I mean, it's there, but it wasn't quite clicking in my soul. And so
Okay.
when I arrived at purpose coaching, this is when everything felt, it's a feeling, right? There's no
Yeah.
way to describe it. This felt the most aligned for me. This felt like, oh, this is my next true step. This is where I'm meant to go next. And
Yeah.
for me, purpose coaching, it's not about career. It's not about just one thing. It's about aligning to what is within yourself and getting so super duper solid and clear on not just who you are, but really how you came, what you came here to be, but how you came here to be. So,
Mm-hmm.
what is the energy you want to be living your life with?
Yeah.
Your purpose could be being, the most beautiful partner in the most loving relationship. And that's your purpose. That's what you're called into for like the next
Yeah.
6 months. That's your focus and intention. Or it could be career based. It could be, I want to be a certain level in a career and to create this impact. But it's really driven from aligning within first, so that you can also make decisions on the next best step from an aligned place.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we start deciding, oh, my purpose is this thing over here, but it's driven from misalignment and maybe from fear or scarcity or one of our woundings that we have. So
Yeah.
clicking that into place, clearing out the crap first and then starting to move towards purpose. Where the breathwork piece comes in,
Yes.
so I teach specifically psychedelic breath.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the naming can sometimes be a little put people off, but just to clarify, it's a very legal. There's nothing else in there. You're just using your breath. Um, but it's a very powerful practice that can support us to go even deeper into the subconscious mind, because we're changing our brainwave state. When we breathe in such a way that we are exhaling a lot of CO2, we're doing breath retentions in this breath work as well. We move from this beta prefrontal cortex overthinking, inner critic, I mean, when we feel the overwhelm, that's where it's coming from. When we start to breathe in this way, we change back to limbic system, which is, our emotional home. And
Mhm.
this is where we can start to go deeper. So I have a lot of clients either in one-on-one sessions or even if I'm just, teaching at the yoga studio here or I teach online as well,
Yeah.
who just experience these states of bliss and get these clarity that
Mhm.
maybe they wouldn't have arrived at if their conscious mind hadn't gotten out of the
Yeah.
way.
So I guess what
Yeah.
you're saying is breath work and coaching both are essential because breath work makes you like go into that deep state of mind which allows
Mm-hmm.
you to give or which gives you more clarity and then gives you a better perspective on who you want to be and what you want to do and
Yeah.
else what your purpose is. Is that right?
Exactly. And just to add to that, so the type of coaching that I do is energy coaching primarily. So we're moving a lot of like we move through a transformational process.
Yeah.
We move a lot of energy. We go in through the heart first, not the mind. We go in through the heart because this is the space where we hold on. And so the coaching side of it is the deep work. This is clearing your stuff. This is the shadow work. This is seeing the impacts that, in my case, being a high performer had on my life. The
Mm-hmm.
impact was burnout. I mean, I
Yes.
had a lot of health issues for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
pushing people away, not having fun anymore because I was constantly thinking about work and the next thing. So we have to go through this process. The breath work is a beautiful complement to that
Yes.
because for me, it helps to clear any like remnants once you've already done the deep work. So it helps to clear that. If we're talking about true transformation, and this is of course all my own thoughts and opinions, but
Yes.
we need to do the coaching piece. The energy work comes first because
Oh, okay.
you can do your breath work for your whole
Yeah.
life, and maybe you get like little shifts here and there. Maybe you feel good for a week, and it's mini work, surface
Mhm.
level. But the energy stuff is what shifts it, and the breath work for me is that complement that just helps you to access other states of being. And of course,
Ah,
7 billion people on the planet. We're all different. We all respond
yes.
differently to different
Yes.
things. But just quickly to add as well, for example, today I have a client later and we
Mhm.
will do a breath work and hypnosis together. So
Oh,
again, just working with the subconscious in a different way. So it's just adding that extra oomph to the work that I'm doing.
it does make perfect sense. So I was just going to ask you about how have you found these to have helped your clients and other people?
It, I mean, so the first way, if we speak to actual coaching clients that I work with, so
Mhm.
I do, one-on-ones with people,
Yes.
this has helped them to shift their how like it's their whole belief system that they have built their life on. So
Okay.
we all as humans, we have a lot of common beliefs that show up in very different ways. So we have a belief, not everybody's going to have the same ones, but we all have pretty similar ones, that I'm not enough. The scarcity, which is there is not enough, whether that's to do with money or food, or
Mm.
it shows up in very interesting ways. It's not safe. It's not safe for me to be here. This fear that you're going to be hurt or killed, or like you won't have a roof over your head,
Mhm.
that you're alone. This is another core belief that a lot of people have.
Yes.
And so this work that I do with clients and the specific training that I have is we lovingly, which is where the heart comes in,
Mhm.
lovingly ask questions to support the client to see what is really happening in their life. We like shine a light on it. Once we can go in and start to like clear out some of those beliefs and see where they're coming from and find out where they started, and
Mhm.
doesn't have to be the first time when I was 3 years old, it doesn't have to be like this.
Mhm.
But energetically they can feel like They can feel when something started. Once we can shift that, the transformation is permanent. It
Oh,
doesn't go back. Once we start to look, if we're doing it really deeply in this way, which is also where the mindset stuff is, for me, is secondary. The heart stuff is first, the energy stuff is first, the mind is second. We create more space. So as we go in and we start to see, like, let's say you have a pattern that, okay, I'll use myself as an example. I have a pattern that I will exclude myself on purpose from group situations, from things where I'm maybe not feeling super comfortable. I will exclude myself first so that nobody else can reject me. Nobody can exclude me because I've already done it myself. So
yes,
therefore I'm in control,
yes.
right? So this is a pattern that I have noticed within myself. This has been a really big pattern in my whole life. This comes from rejection.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe when I was younger, something happened where I felt rejected by my mom. I don't know. I also have a bit of an abandonment wound from when I was younger.
Yes.
But now that I can see the pattern and I've shifted a lot of energy around that, I have more space. So when it shows up, I can see it and be like, ah, there you are. I
Mm-hmm.
know exactly what this pattern is. I can see where this is coming from. Doesn't mean that I don't feel emotion around it or I don't feel something and it's just like erased from my whole life. But
Yeah.
I see it and I get to choose differently. And I get to be like, oh, I can see that. And then each time you choose differently, you create a little bit more space until eventually sometimes, you won't have the patterns anymore, or they'll be so like
Okay.
far away that it doesn't even come near you.
So
So,
that's where the transformation comes in, I guess. Yeah.
period, because it's like cutting ties from all of these things that were weighing you down, and you just start to feel lighter and you start to vibrate higher and lean into more things that you want, like that flow state, that joy, that ease of life, that beauty, that like you get to do that because you're taking away some of that weight that you maybe you didn't even see was holding you back.
Yeah. So it's more like aspirational, a way that, when you become clear and when you have more space, you get to aspire more to create that space to make that bigger
Mm,
and vibrate
yes.
higher. And why is it important that we put our heart first before mind? So that's
Mm,
just that's a really, I think most, if you look at it, it's a basic question, but I guess being being a coach would know more about that. So can you please
sure.
tell us? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So this is my second training I'm doing. I'm almost certified in it as the time of this recording. So I think within the next 2-3 weeks, I'll have my certification. But
Oh,
it's called With Heart Energy Coaching,
mm-hmm.
by Natalie Emka. This is where I've learned all about this transformational process. And going in through the heart is the way. Okay, let me give you an example. When you're sitting with somebody and they say, I feel like you didn't listen to me. It can be that wording can feel a bit more attacking. And so the other person gets defensive and they say, well, I feel like you don't hear, and it goes back and forth. If we say, I feel unheard, I feel disregarded, I feel sad, whatever the feeling is, the
Yes.
person can relate with the feeling.
Okay.
Because then it's not putting it on the other person. It's not saying like, you made me feel this way. It's saying like, I feel like this. And
Yeah.
you can sit and be like, oh, I know what that feels like. And
Yeah.
it opens a bit more space in conversation. I mean, this is in conflict, but it creates more space for really healthy conversation because we're speaking about our feelings,
Mm,
and our feelings come from the heart.
yes.
There's a lot of research right now on the science side of things that the heart so first of all, the heart sends more information to the brain than the brain does to the heart. The
Oh,
heart has its
is
own
that
brain.
so?
There's a
Oh.
whole group called the Heart Math Institute in the US. You can join them. It's like a donation base. You get a lot of really great information, but they're doing a lot of research on the heart because the heart, when you look at the field, the electromagnetic field that we have, it starts in the heart. So this is the science side. There's a
Okay.
lot happening. The
Yeah.
brain is the one that creates the emotion. So your nervous system takes in all of the information, what's happening, but it
Mm-hmm.
goes through the heart to tell the brain, hey, we're feeling
Yeah.
this way. And then the brain goes, all right, here's the recipe, and flushes the body. We
Okay.
sit with that for 90 seconds and then we're finished with that emotion. Maybe there's another wave, but emotions are only 90 seconds long.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of going in through the heart first, for me as the coach, the way that I like to view it is that we're like a detective team, and we're a team. I'm not here with the answer. I'm not teaching when I'm coaching.
Okay.
And even though I could be speaking with a client and I can see all of the dots from these things that they're sharing about their life, and I can see how this connects with this and how this is this.
Okay.
It's not my job to tell the client, oh, I can see da 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 da. But
Mm.
my job is to be right there next to them, asking them really powerful, loving questions, very simple questions as well. Sometimes we overcomplicate it in the
Yeah.
mind. Like if someone was saying something like, and I just, and it made me feel like I was bad and blah, 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 blah. I'd say, well, what felt bad about that?
Mm.
What about that makes you bad? And then, we start to go deeper and deeper, but this is all coming from the heart space.
Yeah.
It's all coming from the feeling and the emotions that we have. So going in through the heart is really getting to those deep rooted patterns that we have, these patterns which create our pattern behaviors. And then once we can start, as I said, I think earlier, like clearing some of that energy around that and creating space, and an energy release can be, crying. It can be sighing. It doesn't have to be tears. Like I'm not a big crier. So a lot of mine is just like feeling it and letting it move. This is also where breath work can help to release like
Yeah.
stagnant energy. That is the first step. And once we can clear energy around stuff, the soul will kind of naturally realign, because it's almost like it's got like a thorn in its side. And so you take that out and it's like, oh, okay, got a bit
It's
more
almost
space.
like a physio or a chiro that fixes
Exactly.
your body and all that, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the mind will naturally follow along.
Mm-hmm.
Now there is an element of when you want to change pattern behaviors, when you decide like, oh, actually I keep watching Netflix so like 4 hours at nighttime, and that's really not helping me. That's not, I'm going to choose, I'm only going to watch Netflix for 2 hours, then I'm going to turn the TV off and I'm going to do whatever else it is that you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
We have to have intention behind that. And there's an energy that we have behind intention when we decide we're going to do something. Now, whether we actually do it or not, that's a whole, maybe
Different
there's still
story.
stuff to be cleared, like energy to be cleared around maybe why you're not doing it. It
Yeah.
could be that, maybe you said, I'm going to study for 2 hours and you're not studying. And then actually going in, why are you not studying? Because you're afraid you're going to fail anyway, and then we can go deeper into that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It feels right when you say it all comes from the heart, first of all, because every action or every thought or every emotion that we have is basically based from the heart, isn't it? That's really
Yeah.
interesting. So, how is this different with other approaches?
Just a quick note on the heart piece,
Yeah,
which is going to tie into what I'm about to share.
yeah.
I was reading the other day, I think it's a book called Wheels of Life. It's a chakra by Anodea Judith. It's a brilliant book.
Mm-hmm.
And she was speaking about, or there was a quote from somebody around the fact that we have been living in this kind of millennia. It's been driven from the third chakra, which is your solar plexus, which is all about your power, your leadership, your control. And that's what the last millennia has really been about. It's been about like, how do we get more power? How do we get, more money? How do we get more control? And this is what it's been about. And now it feels like we're shifting. A lot of people are, you could say, spiritually waking up, but if that doesn't resonate, just people are becoming more aware of mental health,
Yeah,
how things impact their body. Actually, what do they really want from life? Like the
yeah.
last couple of years, people are saying, I don't want to do a 40-hour work week at a job that I hate anymore. I want to go and do whatever. I want to open a flower shop, or I want to go teach people how to do art somewhere, whatever it is. So we're having a bit of a shift away from this power-led center, and we're starting to move into the heart. So the heart is like going to be the new barometer on how we decide if we're being successful, if we are leading a good life, if we are leading a
For being
life in
authentic.
integrity,
Yeah.
authenticity.
Yeah.
Like so much. The heart is going to be the leader. Again, maybe it's not, but this is just from the people that I'm in, like the circles that I'm in, the people that I follow, and from my own feeling, this is going to be the new way. So this is where with heart energy coaching has been for me transformative to know that there is this new way, because it's a pretty new way of coaching. Other coaches also have really beautiful modalities. So I'm absolutely not saying that this is like the one and only, you know, different things work for different people. And sometimes we need to go through different steps in the path. I started with a psychologist, actually, 2018. That's how I started my personal growth journey. So I was with a psychologist for 10 months. Then I moved into having a coach, which was just like conversation, but it was a very different form of questioning than the way that I have been taught to do it. So it felt very much like they were there and I was here. They weren't next to me. And again, no, it's not in a disrespectful way at all. It was just the way that was. This year I worked with a with heart energy coach, and that shifted a lot for me. Last year I worked with a coach who did a lot of hypnotherapy, like deep hypnosis, and kind of some somatic work as well, which was also transformative, but a lot of that stuff hasn't stuck this year. So it worked for a little while, but it hasn't fully stayed in my energetic field, let's say. So there's many different, I mean, some coaches will just work with, the simplest thing to say is if somebody listening is looking for a coach, it's the same way that you would, if you had a specific health issue, like if you had something with your spine, you're probably going to go to a chiropractor. If you have something with your muscles, you're going to go to a physio. So you're going to find the specialist who can support you in what it is that you are in pain about. Because clients come because they have a pain and they've reached their pain threshold and they're like, I gotta do something about this. I can't keep living my life like this. I mean, we don't always have to get to the pain threshold, but most people do. And so finding that right person first, and then starting to look at, okay, what modalities do they use? What is their style? Is it just mindset work and we're going to talk about things? Do they offer anything extra? What is this container going to be? And I think that's really the first point for people who are looking for coaching, because there is so much. There's past life regression, which is still kind of coaching, but it's not coaching in a sense of supporting you with your life today. It's looking into past lives. There's techniques like time techniques. There's hypnotherapy, and there's very many different forms of hypnotherapy. Marissa Peers does a very powerful hypnotherapy, more of an old school hypnotherapy, but I've added, I've built it with my own flair. There are people who offer like Akashic Records readings or use tarot in their coaching business. So it depends on what resonates with you. And I think you have to have an element of belief within yourself that the modality works
for you. Okay.
Like hypnosis doesn't work if someone doesn't believe hypnosis doesn't work, because your mind is still really, really powerful. And it's going to be sitting there as I'm talking and counting backwards from 10, and it's going to be like, this is bullshit. Like, this is not working. So we also have to have that the belief and that resonance with the coach that you are working with as well.
It's really true, because you have to make sure that when you're looking for a specialist, you have to make sure that it's right for you, that you resonate with the coach, or what the coach is trying to help you with, and
Yeah.
that coach will be able to help you with whatever you have that's been bugging you.
A big shift that we're going to be seeing, because the coaching industry is like exploding. There's so
Mm,
many coaches out there,
mm,
and I feel there's going to be a lot of changes happening in the way that coaching shows up. So there's a lot of people out there who are not necessarily certified,
yeah.
who have maybe just had a had an experience that was uncomfortable, that was painful, that they had to learn and grow in.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't necessarily say that was coaching, and it's more consulting, which is where you give advice and, you listen to people.
Yes.
Doesn't necessarily have a long lasting shift on how you show up in the world. Maybe helps people through like a certain circumstance. But I do feel like this industry is going to be changing a lot, again, from the heart, being in integrity, being authentic.
Mm,
We're going to start to see that, because it is a bit overwhelming at the moment if you are looking
yeah.
for a coach, and
Yeah.
is going to be really seen as a very powerful, impactful business. Every coach, I mean, it is a business. We're serving, we're helping,
Yeah.
but it will be seen more in the same level as, when you look at people like who are lawyers or
Doctors,
other
professionals.
entrepreneurs, and
Yeah.
it's like a very solid profession.
Yes.
It's just at the moment I feel like there's a lot of noise in the space. Things are maybe a bit out of alignment and a bit not in integrity, but I do think that's going to fall away over the coming years.
You really do need to study for this before you actually do become a coach and a certified coach, obviously. And
Yes.
you have to know what you're doing.
The work that coaches are doing out there, whether it's a business coach or whether it's like what I do, purpose coaching, like supporting people personally, it's almost devaluing. It's like people are seeing coaches as just like the next influencer, whereas that's
Mm,
not what it's about.
it-
Like, my purpose, my calling is to be here and be of service. And I believe everybody's purpose is to be of service. How you do that's your mission. That can change. You're going to like have different paths along the way, but
yes.
my purpose is to be of service. And if
That's
I'm not able
beautiful.
to do that, some people charge a very large amount of money, which
Mm,
is up to everybody individually. But the reason I don't charge 15,000 euros a month to coach with me is because it's not accessible. And I want to actually be helping people.
yes, exactly.
Maybe in 10 years down the line, when I've been doing this for, got some like years under my belt. I've been doing this for 2 years now.
Yeah.
But when there's a lot of new coaches at the moment who, for me, is 5 years and under, like we're still new,
Mm.
who are not making their services accessible for a lot of people.
What you said was beautiful because you have to keep in mind that we're talking about people's lives, like you said, and
Yes.
if you're
Oh, the
not
certification
really,
piece. Yeah.
yeah, and if you're not really certified or you don't know what you're doing, it could in turn put someone in danger or put someone,
Yes.
in a negative position rather than help them, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yes.
And I think, yeah, if people are in it for the money and for the influencer lifestyle,
Yeah.
then that for me is out of integrity and out of alignment with
Mm-hmm.
the depth and the importance of what this work is and how it can really, really, truly serve people and really transform lives. So
Yeah.
it's certification. I mean, does everybody need one? Maybe not. Maybe someone's had leadership skills and they've been in the corporate world for a long, long time. Maybe they don't need the certification specifically, but we need credibility in what we're doing
Mm-hmm.
for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really, yeah, that's really the key, that we know that we can help people without endangering, because we also have to be mindful of trauma.
Yeah.
Coaches in general,
Exactly.
we're not trained to deal with trauma. That
Yeah.
is a specialist. Whether that's going to change in the future, I don't know. But if somebody came to me with a very deep trauma,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not qualified to
Yeah.
support them as much as my heart might want to.
Yeah.
It's not safe. And so
Yeah.
I like, I mean, this is in my training. I have to refer them to
somebody.
therapist to
Yeah,
support XYZ. If
yeah.
somebody's on like medication for, mental health challenges, then I need a written letter from their doctor before they can come and work with me, because
Mhm.
it's people's
It's
lives and we have to
protecting, yeah.
be
It's not just
really,
protecting the client, it's also protecting yourself, I guess. Very, very interesting. But what uh why work with women predominantly? What is it about feminine power that brings you to help women out
yeah.
mostly?
Yes. So when I first started, I was actually like not sure where I was going to go with this. And I kind of had myself open for everyone. But I feel because of the softness, let's say, of my approach
Mm-hmm.
and even my voice, I have a I have a great meditation voice.
Yeah.
Um, with that is I felt like with a lot of men that I did some work with, that it didn't hit them as deeply and
Mm.
I couldn't have the impact. I mean, I'm also generalizing here, but this got me a little bit thinking about myself and my journey. And as I went through the last few years with my own journey and actually shifting from corporate environment, which is very masculine driven,
Mm-hmm.
very masculine energy driven. It's competition, working, how much can you provide, how much can you do, a lot of doing. It's very logical, can be a little bit controlling.
Mm.
It's pushing, it's a really pushy energy. And it took me a long time after that, from the high performer and all of that,
Yeah.
to start to shift back into my more natural state, which for me, regardless of gender, because these kind of energetics are not connected with gender, but
Yeah.
was more of a feminine state, to be more in flow, to be more expressive with my emotions, to learn how to
Okay.
reconnect with my emotions, to be
Yeah.
more creative, to be more allowing to myself, to be more sensual and soft with myself.
Mm.
And a huge, huge piece of this puzzle for me was learning how to work with my menstrual cycle as
Mm.
well. So, like tapping into that wisdom that's already within the body. And so, when I was uncovering this all for myself,
Yeah.
this was part of my path, I was like, I know so many women who struggle with the same, who are
Mm-hmm.
working in this corporate place, who
Mm-hmm.
are, and I'm not against corporate. I know sometimes I sound like that, but I'm
Yeah.
not against corporate. Like we need it. But where I struggle is how the feminine has been put as lesser than in corporate, or women aren't allowed to. They could just show up as their beautiful feminine selves, but they
Yeah.
wouldn't get ahead. They wouldn't get the promotion. They wouldn't,
They wouldn't
succeed in the same
thrive.
way.
Yeah.
Exactly, because it's not catered for. So this is where I started getting that pull, because I spent a long time last year and this year
Mm-hmm.
really feeling into that feminine energy and that feminine power, and how women specifically, like who resonate more deeply with the feminine energy traits, which is most women, how disconnected we've become from that,
Mm-hmm.
and how much power there is when we reconnect it. So when I reconnect to it. So when I think of feminine power, and it's not saying you always have to be running around in like a flowy dress and
Yeah.
lipstick and dancing in the moon.
Yeah.
It's I mean, if you love it, do that, but
Yes.
it's
By all means.
reconnect. Yeah, exactly. It's reconnecting with that truth of who you really are from an energetic perspective, and what you want to be expressed through you, and allowing like giving yourself the permission to really do that. And I know we give yourself permission, like it's really easy, but this is where the coaching piece comes in, to
Yes.
like support you to be empowered. Like I don't
Mhm.
empower you. I don't, I'm just there to hold this space and ask the right questions so that you can empower yourself.
Yeah.
And this is where the feminine power piece for me is just so important, because when we are living in that alignment and when we are living from that truth, life is just so much brighter.
Yeah.
Understanding. I mean, we know it. We learn it at school. We learn about periods, menstruation, you bleed, you don't bleed.
Yeah.
But that's all I really remember. And that's all society has kind of let you believe, and the shame that we can get around that. And I
Mm.
know in some countries today, there's still like so much work to be done to
Mhm.
support young girls, who start menstruating, and
Yes.
what they don't even have like any sanitary towels, nothing to support
Yeah.
them. But we in the Western world, we don't have any excuse anymore. Like, we
Mhm.
need to be listening to our bodies, understanding the 4 seasons that we go through
Yeah.
every month, whether it's 28 days, 30 to whatever your cycle looks like,
Mhm.
and leveraging where you're at in your cycle to support you to live your life better. Like,
Oh,
I know that there's 2 days I don't see clients, I don't meet people. Those are my 2 days. If I want to lie on the couch with a hot water bottle and like binge watch Harry Potter, I'm absolutely going to do that. I mean, I don't do that every month, but like if that's what I want to do, I let myself have that. I
yeah.
know that leading up to my period, I'm going to be more irritable, a little bit more grumpy, like, I'm not going to be feeling amazing. But I also know that I can take care of myself in that time. I can go food shopping, I can food prep, I can make sure that I don't see certain people who I know maybe I have a shorter fuse with than others. Like, so you can start to create your life around understanding the natural wisdom of your
Yeah.
body.
So it's understanding your body, listening to it, going with the flow of how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
see.
then also asking for the support around, like, if
Yeah.
you have a partner or your friends or whoever, if you're really lucky and you have a boss that's, really open to these conversations,
Yeah.
it can help you immensely. And it means you can go through your day and through your month guilt free, because we
Yeah.
get guilty if you have period pain and it's really bad and you just want to go home, but you feel
Yes,
guilty because you're a
exactly.
team. But we can start to be a bit kinder with ourselves.
Yeah, so I guess feminine power, it's a lot to do with being on the more open side, softer side, being more like being true to yourself, men too. I think we discussed this on a previous podcast. My husband and I, we were talking about there are more women who are depressed and anxious, but more men commit suicide. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess it has a lot to do with the feminine power that you're talking about as well. Our feminine selves are more open to like talking about stuff rather than keeping it to ourselves. I guess reason why that statistic is what it is. Yeah.
Exactly, because one of the traits of feminine energy when she's in her power, it's much easier for us, I think, to connect with our emotions. Again, generalization,
Yes.
than it is for men.
Yeah.
Talk about, oh, down with the patriarchy, but I don't believe in down with the patriarchy. I believe that we've been ruled from a very unhealthy, very toxic patriarchy, and that has
Mm.
also caused a lot of struggles for men who aren't have been
Yeah.
told that don't show emotion, toughen up, be the man, be the protector, be the
Yeah.
provider. And
Yeah.
it's so much pressure. And to
That's
show any
right.
crack of weakness,
Yeah.
they don't.
Yeah.
And to your point, a friend of mine back home in New Zealand, he was my friend and he was my boss.
Mm-hmm.
Most fun guy at the party, like 4 o'clock, let's meet at the bar, let's have a drink before you close the day. Like, great guy, but he committed suicide a few years ago,
Oh,
and
that's
there was no, he had
side.
2 beautiful daughters, he had his partner, like,
Mm.
there was nothing from my side. I mean, we weren't, best mates, but I wouldn't have pegged that for him. And
Yeah.
so it's just very, very sad that, I mean, it's starting to shift now with men's circles being introduced, which I think are
Yes.
really important. But
Yes.
yeah.
And it's good that we're now more open to mental health and all that,
Mm,
opening up to our more feminine side. So that's great. I mean, this changes people's lives because you help other people, not just when I say your clients are mostly women, but you also help men see that they are supposed to be tapping into their feminine power as well.
And with that, I was teaching at a festival over summer here, just
Mhm.
a few months ago, and I did a feminine activation practice. It was a embodiment piece
Mhm.
with breath work, and I had a lot of men. I had about 55, 60 people that joined in this little tent in this festival.
Oh wow.
And really, really, it's a beautiful spiritual festival. I love it. And they were like, is it okay for me to be here? I'm like,
Yeah.
absolutely, like come in. I think
Yeah.
we had about 10 men there, and it was
Oh.
really great to see the interest and the curiosity in
Yeah.
it. And it's also something I teach in my weekly breathwork classes as well. Like we touch on their general topics, but because it's me and I speak from my heart and I'm very open,
Mhm.
we talk about emotions. So, like yesterday's class was about, the parts of you that you've rejected because you thought your anger was bad, and so you don't want to express. And there's a lot of men who come to my live classes as well, and so it
Mhm.
gives them a bit more of a taste, because my energy now is like naturally pretty feminine. I mean, I have my masculine side where I build
Yeah.
my structure in my business and do all my things, but I'm pretty feminine now, and they'll be able to feel that even if they can't yet understand it or like be able to put it in a box or anything. I know that they'll be able to feel it,
Yeah.
and that helps.
Can you describe like one of your most powerful conversations with a client and how it has impacted them and you as well as a coach?
Sure. One that just comes to mind, but because it was a fairly recent one,
Mhm.
it's a hard question because it's like, oh, they're all pretty, like there's always
Yeah.
something that kind of shifts. And it's interesting because sometimes there'll be it might feel like a very small shift in a client, but it
Mm,
has such a big ripple effect in their life.
yeah.
Um, but let's talk about the one that kind of popped into my mind, which was I was with a client the other day or the other evening, and they had been in a situation with some other people, some like family members and non-family members, and something was said, there was an action that had caused them to have a reaction, and they felt very sad and they felt really frustrated and they felt annoyed. And I think everybody's had this feeling before where you're just like, I'm done, like I'm out, I'm
Mm,
just like closing the door, I don't want to deal with it anymore, like done.
yes.
And so they had this reaction, and so we were talking about this reaction that they had, because their intention for the call. So every call that I have, um, the client, they have a responsibility. It's in their contract to come with an intention. Like, what would you like to work on in the call?
Yeah.
Maybe they have like a general idea, then we kind of narrow it down.
Yeah.
So they wanted to understand. I mean, this person is very energetically attuned, let's say. They
Mhm.
wanted to understand a little bit more about their reaction. Why did they react that way? What was like really happening? And we went through the conversation, we went through the questions, and it turns out, because of course you might think, but going in through the heart, asking questions, it turns out that the reaction actually came from their own worry, their own fears around some other things they've been through this year, but like how that they're growing, their own evolution,
Mm,
how, because they're worried about, they're trying to expand their own business and their own life at the moment.
mhm.
But because of this kind of altercation, they had felt, which they had reflected back on the person, was actually just a reflection within themselves, that they're worried that they're not going to be able to grow the business that they want to grow, that they're not going to be able to do the things that they want to do, that like if this is happening with this person, then this means that they failed. So
Mm,
it's interesting because then you can start to go into that. So
mm.
like where that's coming from, creating space around it.
Yes.
So that was the most recent one that kind of came through, and I think it's a good one because it just shows like how simple it can be sometimes, and how simple our little like patterns can show up. I mean,
Yeah.
of course, we're human and we're having all of these experiences, and if someone was yelling at me, I would also be like, well, I'm
Yeah.
out, I'm done.
Yeah.
but there's still some, like, you can feel something within yourself, like,
Yeah, like there's
it,
something wrong. It's interesting because it just reflected on them what their reaction was about.
yeah,
Okay.
because they obviously came to the call and they were still feeling something around that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, even if it's been a few weeks, and it's like, okay, well, why is that still
Mm,
lingering?
yeah.
What is that? So, like, getting really curious about it.
As a final question, I guess, you're a purpose coach, right? What is your purpose in life? What have you, in your journeys, have you, I would understand you would have found your purpose already being a coach in that, but can you tell us more about it?
Let's say my mission with my purpose coaching at
Mhm.
this point, this chapter of my life
Yes.
is to support women who are feeling overwhelmed, who are feeling maybe a little trapped and not sure, not clear where to go. Maybe they're at a crossroads, whether that, like, wherever that is in their life. So
Yes.
I support women like this to realign to their higher purpose, which really means realigning to their, or discovering their
Mm-hmm.
higher self, reconnecting with that part within them. And the purpose of that is so that we can feel more embodied, we can feel more joy, we can feel more in flow, and we can feel more creative and have space. You
Mm-hmm.
know, this overwhelm to overflow, but in a very, the way that I like to do it is very, like, sustainable, very sustainable, like in 3-month containers. You know, if you go to the gym, you want to do a fitness goal, it takes 12 weeks for you to see a
Yeah.
result. This is
Yeah.
also why this is how I work as well. And really my purpose with all of this, I mean, to keep it super simple, I just want people to be happy, like, live
Yeah.
a good life,
Yeah.
like, create what you want, like, let's clear all of this crap that we have and all of these, like, beliefs, and let's do it together.
Yes.
Let's break cycles, let's
Exactly.
just expand and evolve and just, like,
Vibrate higher.
vibrate higher. Like,
But
that's really what I want for people.
oh, that's awesome, Jenni. Before we go, I was gonna ask you a favor. You know how
Of course.
I have written a collection of poems and short stories, right? And now
Oh,
I'm doing this podcast as a side bit for that book. And I'm introducing this new segment on the show where my guest sort of reads out one of my poems. Is that going to be all right with you? Do you want to have a go?
yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Yeah. Okay. And it's related to what we discussed earlier, what your purpose is, and in alignment with yourselves and having joy,
Hmm.
that happiness and authenticity.
The secret to happiness. Want to know a secret? Mine is you. My most favorite day was when I met you, as if on fate's cue. Happy, happy, I'm feeling the best ever. I found me a beautiful chappie. What could be better? I saw the sun was especially bright and the sky was unbelievably blue. I heard the bees buzzing and the birds singing their sweet song. The trees and the flowers smelt lovely too. The air felt cool and the breeze so strong. The tiny raindrops tasted like honeydew, and that's when you came along. That was happiness. Then came joy. Joy is seeing the azure sky speaking to me through the white, feathery cotton clouds above this lovely country. Looking at the sun, never did it shine as dazzling and brilliant so. Hello, it said. The yellow makes me not a tad bit mellow. My mind at ease, yet funny. I wonder, has anyone heard a bee sneeze? Why haven't I listened to the skylark's delightful melody before? Now I'm craving the tune and oh, for so much more. Joy over yonder is when I get a whiff of the citrusy fragrance of pine trees, of charming roses and lavender. I could make enchantingly scented posies. I can almost touch the crisp air with my bare hands. The breeze enveloped me, so intense it felt like quicksand. Pitter-patter, little dewdrops that hop. A mix of bitter, sweet, salty, sour, savory, its flavor just pops. Suddenly, I found a deeper meaning around me, but everyone and everything. With a roller coaster of emotions, I wonder, am I dreaming? Breathing in the aroma of home-baked bread, examining and tapping the cracks on its head, stroking and caressing the lines, contours, and marks, listening to the crack and crunch when I break it apart. Savoring the salt, yeast, and butter, it has so much to offer, and then thinking, oh, what a joy. Joy, joy, I'm going to burst. I found not a boy, but it could have been worse. When I found me is my favorite time. Want to know a secret? I am mine.
Tell us how people can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. I, like most people out there, so I'm mostly on Instagram if we talk about socials. That is I am Jenni Anne, JenniAnne. So that's where I'm hanging out most of the time. My website is I am JN. Over there, you can find all the kind of offerings and services that I have. You can also get links to the breathwork if people wanted to join online breathwork. And another platform that I am slowly growing at the moment is my YouTube channel. So I'm offering some yoga over there because I'm also a yoga teacher. I'm doing a little bit of like musing, so talking about topics. I'm going to just pre-warn everyone. I'm not prolific. I tangent talk a lot, but work in progress. We're getting there.
No, you're good.
Perfect. There's some meditations over there as well. And yeah, so that's where people can find me.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for your time, Jenni.
No worries. Thank you so much.
All
Thanks
the
for
best,
having me.
all the best to your coaching and breathwork.
So that's it for tonight, folks. I hope you enjoyed that episode tonight with Jenni Anne. Thank you so much for listening in. And don't forget to tune in again next week, Friday, same time. Please don't forget to check out my website as well, www.conversationsIneverhadwithluna.com, where you can find everything about my book, Conversations I Never Had with Luna and Other Stories. You can find that on Amazon as well, and you can buy that on there. So I hope you have a great night. And so again, this is Anna, Moonlight Conversations, signing out. Good night.